Hey, welcome to the Learning Network. You're with Kell Bell. Today we're talking about building stronger connections with our students and what it might look like in our classroom. So there are four main areas that I really believe that we can start to build some really meaningful and deep connections with our students. It's all about the relationships that we build and we strengthen with our kids. So showing a genuine interest in their life is highly crucial to building that relationship. So what this might look like in the CAFS classroom are simple things like asking the kids how they are. I know that sounds really basic, but what we can start to do is just to get a gauge of how they're feeling that day, that lesson, that week, to then be able to help them and support them in our CAFS classroom. This can also look like asking them after the weekend what they did on the weekend without kind of prying into their personal life, but maybe finding out about how they went in their dance concert or in their soccer grand final, or something about them in general and their interests that they really love and are passionate about. You might have heard a story that they've shared with you in the CAFS classroom. You might then ask them about that. It might be something that they shared with you about their family, or it might be something that is affecting them at that point in their life in terms of their well-being. Just a general check-in with our kids is really important. Honestly, I think we become so fast-paced. We kind of dive into our classroom and we forget to really check on the wonderful, amazing young people who are sitting in front of us. Our kids really matter, and if we show a genuine interest in them, their well-being, and them as a person and their interests, they're going to work with us and for us. So when it comes to, them taking risks, or when it comes to them getting some feedback from you, or giving each other feedback, they're going to be much more open to that sharing once we have built that connection with the kids. The second thing is really about showing an interest in them as a person, as a student, with all these other things in mind. So showing a genuine interest in them, where they are, what they're doing, how they are, but also a genuine interest in what they like and enjoy. So this might be something that you could start to do when you might do like a team building activity, or you might get the kids to share, okay, let's quickly whip around to a couple of you. What was your favorite thing that happened over the weekend? Or something like that we can kind of get an idea of what they kind of feel like they're interested in, what their strengths are, what they feel proud of. And again, that can filter into those other conversations that we'll have with our kids throughout the day, throughout the lesson, and then throughout the week. Of course, all this really helps you build those strong relationships with the kids. They get to know you on a more personal level. At the end of the day, we are people, and most of us came into teaching because of the kids. The kids light us up. They're why we're here. So showing a genuine interest in them is really important to building those connections. The next thing is showing an interest in asking them about their life. So, who's in their family? Who do they actually live with? Something a bit about their family dynamics. Obviously, our course lends itself to that anyway. The kids will start to talk about that, with examples and discussions in class. But what you can start to do is kind of get to know their family a little bit. Once they start sharing some of those things, they might have shared a story with you, maybe about their mum who has, just gone to hospital or had a procedure, or their little sister starting kindergarten, whatever it might be. Just asking them genuinely, like we would each other, how they are or how their family member is. If you know something about their family, which isn't too private, obviously, about their family dynamics that they have shared with the wider class, you might like to use that in an example. So if you know that there's some sort of blended family situation, or if you have a particular student in your class, without kind of, calling them out, you might say, a young person who lives with their grandmother, you might know that there's someone in your in your classroom who has a grandmother, and they're living with their grandma. They're not living with other family members. They can kind of see themselves in those examples, and they can start to see themselves, that you show a genuine interest and care in their life. So it could be about dynamics of the family. It might be living situations like our different family structures maybe. We might talk about choices in other things. So just bringing that family into the examples that we provide in our classroom, again, builds on that relationship with our kids. The other thing that you might like to start to do is start to involve the actual community in which the young person resides. So if you know the location of where they live, most kids are open and honest. You might talk about where they actually live. You know, do you guys remember that particular park or that particular, you know, service that's around the corner from the shops? You start to kind of involve the kids into the classroom. You bring the kids into your classroom. You open up their world, because it's not just those four walls or that screen if you're in a virtual classroom. It's really breaking down those barriers and getting the kids to see themselves in your examples, in their classroom, and that you're actually connecting with their life. This can look so many different ways. When we talk about the services available for families, for communities, for groups, we can start to bring in some of those examples, and the kids will start to open up some of those with and to you. In terms of your own personal stories, you need to be really mindful. There are many, you know, teachers who love to share, and of course, I'm saying not to share, but it's really important to just keep some of those private, you know, conversations, private experiences to yourself. What you might like to do is talk about yourself in a third person. You might say, I have a friend, or I have a family member who has done this, this, and this. Of course, it's completely okay to have guest speakers as teachers, but again, they might like to be really mindful about how they're talking about their personal life. Of course, check with your head teacher or your coordinator or your principal about how that might look in your CAFS classroom. We want to open our CAFS classroom. We want it to be really meaningful and connective, but we also want to make sure people's privacy is maintained. The other thing that you can start to do is bring all those little things into the case studies you provide in your class. Remove yourself from case studies, but then talk about those within your classroom. So I'm one of four. I might talk about that. My parents, you know, were divorced when I was 19. I could talk about that and use that as an experience. I obviously won't pry too much into that or go into too much depth, but I could talk about, you know, blended families and connections and the importance of roles and all those sorts of things that kind of, you know, start to come into those connections across the course. So using examples, using case studies and scenarios that the kids can actually connect with, whether it be about people in the classroom, other students in the school, without actually saying their name. So if you're talking about homeless people and you know that there's a number of students in your school who are homeless, you can say that to the kids. There are a number of, you know, young people in our school who are homeless. They're living in a refuge, or they're living in a shelter, or they're couch surfing. This is not just something that you know, people who we see in the media, or people who you know, live in a hostel that might be you know, in remote parts or whatever, city parts, whatever location we're in, live. This is actually happening to us right here in our school, without obviously talking about the student per se and their name and that sort of thing. So there are some ways that we can start to build or break down those barriers within our classroom. Again, many of us don't like to share personal stories, and of course, I'm not saying that. You would be using yourself in that third person, but use your family, use friends, you know, other people, other case studies, I suppose, to really bridge that gap between, you know, the textbook and the syllabus, and you know, the notes we have for the kids or the Google slides we're providing to them. It is that personal connection that is so important in our CAFS classroom. And honestly, it is the difference. This is why I think we continue to teach our course, because it is so relatable to life. The kids also have to connect that to the syllabus and have to have really strong connections and have really good writing structure and address the glossary of keyword. But from a personal level, it is amazing what our course offers. The other areas that I want you guys to start to think about are things that you can do within that physical space in your CAFS classroom to really break down, I don't know, just the four walls, break down the actual physicality of our classroom, bring it to life. You know, we all kind of like to live in lots of nice spaces and have, well, most of us anyway, have, really lovely homes. Let's make our CAFS classroom like a little home, like a little place where the kids feel very welcomed and feel very invited. I've spent a lot of money in the past on making my classroom really inviting, and I don't know, it's just something I've done, but over the years, obviously, I've become a lot more creative at what that might look like. So if there's something at home that I no longer use and I think my CAFS classroom might benefit from it, then I'd kind of bring it in. Or if I see like a garage sale or see something at Kmart, those of you who have worked with me before, you would know that I try to bring my CAFS classroom to life. Gone are the days that our kids sit in rows or single seats. It is about lifelong learning, working together in collaborative spaces. And look, that's what we do. That's where we're human. We naturally do that. So I think it's important for us to hopefully replicate some of our classroom like that. It might be something simple that you could do, throwing up a few posters, and I've obviously got lots of resources that I've provided to you guys for free that you could use that as a starting point. If you don't have those links, I can provide that to you, but some posters in the classroom, some quotes, that sort of thing, laminate them, pop them up. Even if you have a virtual classroom, you can start sharing those with your kids. I know during COVID, we often did that. We tried to have some sort of quote at the beginning of a week or a really fun clip to finish the week on. So the kids still had that connection, that had that safe learning space. What it might also look like is getting some little decorations, or it might be adding some greenery to your classroom. Of course, if you have the budget, both personally and as a faculty, to do this, that is all well and good. If you have a physical classroom to yourself, you are one of the lucky ones. Not many of us have had that opportunity. I did at a previous school, which I feel super, super grateful for. And what I was able to do in that classroom is open up a world for my kids where they felt so invited and so happy and so welcomed. And I would often have other colleagues and other kids talk about that. Oh, Miss, we love our class. You'll love your classroom. It's so inviting. It's so happy. And that's what I wanted it to be, because it then reflected on what was happening with the kids. They then felt really happy to be there and looked forward to coming to class. If you don't have a classroom to yourself, team up with a colleague and work together at maybe creating that space with the minimal budget that you have. I'm talking just little things that you can do. Plants, maybe a little, little corner where they can chill out in, like a mindfulness corner or something like that. It might be, again, Kmart, you could give yourself a budget like $50, $40 and say, okay, with this money, what am I going to do to just improve my classroom just that little bit? Of course, if you have the faculty budget to do that, it could be something simple as buying, a whole pack of, texters or pencils or some stationery for the class and post-it notes, just so the kids can access those really quickly. Or you might, decide to put other things up around the classroom. We're really lucky. We have lots of things that are quite affordable these days to use that. And if we don't have the finances, we just need to be thrifty and be really creative what that might look like. And of course, using things around the classroom, bringing things in from home that might just, make the classroom a little bit more inviting than what it is, than that grey or that black or that brown or that blue that we often see in our classrooms. The other thing that you might like to start to do from a social sense is maybe incorporate some cooperative learning groups. If you have never come across Kagan structures or the way Kagan run cooperative learning, it will blow your mind. It's a bit primary schoolish, but something that I've really loved for most of my career, really. If you just Google Kagan structures, fantastic ways of setting your kids up in cooperative learning groups with different levels, that sort of thing. Not just group work for group work's sake, but the kids really having a role to play within that group. And it really has broken down some of the barriers that I've always had in my CAFS classroom. They start out, and I wouldn't send them into cooperative learning groups straight away, but they might have their friendship groups. That's who they just sit with the whole time for 2 years. Let's break down those barriers. Let's really build that CAFS classroom as a really positive learning space for the kids to really work together. Because at the end of the day, when we come to the HSC, it's about the kids and their results and our average, not necessarily about each particular student. the high flyers, they're by themselves, or the low ones are by themselves, but the kids building together as a class is really important. Something else that you could do is just maybe incorporate like a get to know you or a team building activity. And that's perfect for the beginning of the term, or resetting ourselves, in the lead up to something else or something new. In terms of emotional stuff, setting goals has always been part of my classroom, whether it be physical, virtual, using Google Keep, a physical goals board, or whatever it might be, for the kids to articulate to you as their class teacher. You're going to be with them for 2 years, what their goals are and where you think they're going to, how you're going to support them in achieving those goals. The other thing might be a really good emotional thing, like creating some sort of gratitude journal or some sort of journaling in your CAFS classroom. And it might be journaling about content, like a learning log. What have I learnt today? What's been the most, valuable thing I've taken away from today? That sort of thing, really involves the kids. The last one is a spiritual connection across your CAFS classroom. And that might look like incorporating some sort of mindfulness in our CAFS classroom. Maybe getting the kids to come in as you kind of set up, if you're setting up some resources or setting up, your data projector or an activity. You might get the kids to come in. They might grab like a colouring in sheet, or they might grab something in your classroom, or they might just put their, just be present at their desk. You might put some quiet music on, but then just to chill and just to calm down before they actually start learning. We know the power of mindfulness now. Many of us teach 7 to 10 PE. And if you're in the TAS faculty, I'm sure you've heard about mindfulness before. There's lots of resources out there about mindfulness for young people. The Resilience Project by Hugh Van Cuylenberg is amazing. I won't go into it, but, he has some really good resources for kids as well. The other thing you might like to do is maybe have some quotes or something around your room. If you're in a religious school, you might have a sacred space where you have a Bible or a cross or something like that the kids can kind of have some time, or some prayer space, whatever it might be. The other thing I've shared with you guys for a little while now is a gratitude jar. So using a gratitude jar and getting the kids to write down what they're grateful for once a day, once a lesson, once a week, once a month, something for them to really just reflect. All you need is some Post-it notes and, some sort of prompt or a pen. And then the kids write down what they're grateful for. They pop it in the jar, and then they've done their little gratefulness activity for the day or the week, whatever you might like to do. The other thing that you could do is really get the kids to work together in those groups to really build on their strengths and possibly their challenges. So when we're working in those cooperative learning groups, getting the kids to possibly just provide some sort of, get to know you activity within that. And I think the beginning of the term is perfect for that. Again, we're so rushed. We're always, talking about business. We're always, push with the kids. But I think once we take that step back with our kids, we can start to really benefit from some of these strategies to build those connections across our class, to really build on those relationships. And cooperative learning, that having that physical space, that positive environment is so crucial to our kids. They will want to be there. They'll want to come back lesson after lesson after lesson, because you have provided such a rich and meaningful and connected classroom. I would love to hear how you connect your CAFS kids in your classroom, and please share on socials what this might look like for you.